I found a stranger sleeping in my childhood bed, so I stopped paying my family's mortgage. Reddit stories. They gave away my room without asking, acting like my space, and my money, were communal property. What they didn't realize was how much of their stability depended on someone they barely respected. Hi, I'm Marcus, 28, and the day I walked into my childhood home and found a complete stranger drooling on my pillow was the day my entire family learned exactly who'd been paying their mortgage for 4 years. Spoiler, it wasn't them. Here's how it went down. I'd driven 3 hours home for a work conference, planning to save money by crashing in my old room. Mom texted, "Your room is all ready!" So I figured, great, one less thing to worry about. I got home around 6. The house smelled like pot roast. Everyone was in the kitchen laughing like a sitcom family. I went upstairs, opened my bedroom door. And there he was. Skinny guy, maybe 20. Passed out cold under my comforter, wearing a tank top, snoring like he owned the place. His shoes were on the floor. His phone charging in my wall outlet. His clothes in my closet. My desk shoved into a corner like trash. For a second I genuinely thought I had sleepwalked into the wrong house. Nope. I went downstairs, walked into the kitchen, and said calmly, "There's a stranger in my bed." Mom didn't even turn away from the stove. "Oh, that's Kevin. Natalie's boyfriend's brother. He needed a place to stay." Natalie chimed in without missing a beat. "Yeah, you're never here anyway, so we gave him your room." My room. With my stuff. In the house I'd quietly been funding for 4 years. I just stared at them. My sister, my brother, my parents, all of them so casual, so dismissive, so used to me being the responsible one that they genuinely believed giving away my space to a random dude was reasonable. They didn't even ask. That was the moment something inside me shut off. Not snapped, just clicked cold. I didn't argue. Didn't yell. Didn't explain. I went upstairs, took a photo of the stranger in my bed, evidence, packed every valuable thing in the garage they'd dumped my belongings into, loaded my car, and left without another word. Then I went back to my hotel, opened my laptop, and canceled the $1,000 automatic mortgage payment they never knew existed. And that was the beginning of their collapse. The next morning, Dad called me 4 times before 8 a.m. I ignored everyone. He finally texted, "We need to talk. Your mother said you left upset about the room situation." The room situation. Like Kevin the random was a minor housekeeping hiccup, not a trespasser in my bed. I told him to meet me at the Main Street coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep things civil. Somewhere he couldn't yell or guilt trip without an audience. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept. Jacket still on, hair messy, eyes red. He sat down across from me, hands clasped like he was preparing for a hostage negotiation. "Son, Natalie shouldn't have done that," he started. "But you disappearing like that. How much is the mortgage?" I interrupted. He blinked. "What?" "The monthly payment." "How much?" "About $1,900, he said slowly. "Why? And how much do you pay?" All of it. I pay all of it." "No," I said quietly. "You pay $900. I pay $1,000. He froze. Like someone had unplugged him. So I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, rotated the screen toward him, and scrolled. 48 months of $1,000 transfers. Same day, same time, same memo line, mortgage help. Dad's face went gray. He looked at the phone like it was radioactive. What is this? This is the only reason you still have a house." His hand shook so hard he had to set the phone down. I didn't realize." "You didn't want to realize." He wiped his face. Right there in the coffee shop. My father, who hadn't cried since his own father's funeral, was breaking down in front of a chalkboard menu advertising lavender lattes. "Why didn't you tell us?" he whispered. "I did," I said. "4 years ago. You were 3 months behind on payments. Facing foreclosure. I negotiated the loan modification. I sent the money. You agreed it would be temporary. He looked at me, devastated. I thought the modification lowered the payment enough. I thought maybe the bank. No, Dad, I said. The bank didn't magically gift you $1,000 a month. That was me. Every month. For 4 years. He buried his face in his hands. Jesus. I'm so sorry. I didn't think. Exactly. He didn't think. Nobody did. That payment is cancelled, I said. Effective immediately. His head snapped up. What? No. No, son, you can't. We can't. We'll lose the house. You'll lose the house if you can't make the payment, I said calmly. That's how mortgages work. It's not my job to prevent the consequences anymore. You're really doing this because of a room? He asked, voice cracking. No, I said. I'm doing this because of 4 years of being taken for granted. The room was just the moment I realized I was funding your life while being treated like a guest in my own home. He stared at me, stunned, broken in a way I'd never seen. What are we supposed to do? He whispered. Be adults, I said. Something everyone in that house has avoided for a long time. I stood up, left cash for my coffee, and walked out. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because for the first time in years, the problem wasn't mine anymore. Dad didn't take long to tell the rest of the family. Because that same night, the floodgates opened. First, a text from Mom. Then Natalie. Then Danny. Then, God help me, even Natalie's boyfriend Brian. A full chorus of clueless outrage. Mom's was first. Your father told me everything. You can't just stop paying the mortgage. We'll lose the house. Call me. Natalie's came second, dripping entitlement. Are you seriously going to ruin our lives over a bedroom? Grow up. Danny's was predictable. Bro, what the hell? Mom's crying. Dad's freaking out. Fix this. And then Brian, whose brother was still wearing my comforter like a second skin 2 days ago, sent this gem. I know this is tense right now, but don't you think you're overreacting? Overreacting. Apparently subsidizing their entire household wasn't enough. I was also supposed to smile while they gave away my room like a party favor. I blocked Brian on sight. My parents tried a different tactic next. The surprise visit. Saturday afternoon, my apartment front desk called. Hi, sir, your mother and sister are in the lobby asking to come up. They say it's urgent. I didn't even look up from my laptop. Tell them I'm not home. Do not let them up under any circumstances. I heard Natalie in the background shouting. We know he's home. Didn't care. They waited in the lobby 2 hours before leaving. 3 days later, the first mortgage payment without my help came due. And they couldn't make it. Dad called from an unknown number, meaning I had already blocked his cell. The moment I answered, he was already unraveling. We're short. We're short by $800. The bank won't extend anything. We're going to miss the payment. Son, please, please don't do this. This isn't something I'm doing to you, I said. You and Mom and the kids built a lifestyle on money you never asked me about. I stopped supporting it. You don't understand, he said. We'll be homeless. No. You'll be adults facing consequences. There was a long silence. Then he said quietly, You've changed. No, I replied. I just stopped letting you treat me like a safety net. By month 2, they were drowning. The bank began pre-foreclosure proceedings. The panic became real. Mom left voicemails sobbing. Natalie pivoted to threats. Danny asked if he could move in with me, temporarily. Every time I blocked one number, another call came from another phone. Then came the desperate legal swing, a letter from an attorney claiming elder financial abuse and breach of verbal contract. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who read it and nearly choked laughing. They're threatening to sue you for stopping giving them money, he said. There is no contract. They don't have a leg, foot, or toenail to stand on. He responded to their attorney professionally. The threats disappeared overnight. And then, in week 7, Dad called again. But this time? There was no anger left. No bargaining. Just defeat. We talked to the bank, he said. We have to sell the house. That was it. 20 years of mortgage, childhood memories, holidays, birthdays, everything, they were losing it. Not because of me. Because for the first time in their lives, they had to live within their means. We'll be listing it next week, Dad said softly. Okay, I said. That's the right move. Where will we go? He whispered. That, I said, is finally up to you. And that was the moment, right there, when he understood. I wasn't coming back. Not to pay. Not to rescue. Not to fix the mess they made. That realization? It shattered him. But it also set me free. The house sold faster than any of them expected. It hit the market on a Monday, had 8 showings by Wednesday, and went under contract by Friday. Suburban housing demand is wild when you aren't the one benefiting from it. Final sale price after closing costs: $180,000. Split 4 ways: Mom, Dad, Natalie, and Danny, roughly $45,000 each. More money than any of them had seen in years. Except instead of feeling saved, they panicked. Because for the first time in their lives, that money wasn't extra. It had to keep them alive. Dad called to update me, his voice tight with embarrassment. We found an apartment. 2-bedroom. $1,200 a month. We'll manage. Manage. A word they never had to practice before. Natalie moved in with her boyfriend to reset financially. 6 weeks later they broke up, and she had to rent a studio, working full-time in a restaurant to survive. For the first time ever, my sister was experiencing rent, bills, and clocking into a job she couldn't abandon because she didn't vibe with the energy. Danny couch-surfed for a while, then finally got a steady job, steady enough to rent a single room in a shared house. Being cut off from free housing magically cured his inability to maintain employment. Funny how that works. And Kevin, the random stranger who'd been drooling peacefully on my pillow the night everything blew up, moved out 2 weeks after I left. Apparently even Natalie found him creepy after a while. Shocking. By month 3, my family's group chat had devolved into a complaint war. Mom lamenting how downsizing has destroyed her spirit. Natalie complaining about her unfair work schedule. Danny complaining about roommates having rules. Dad quietly absorbing all of it because that's who he'd always been, the buffer, the fixer, the one who apologized for everyone else's chaos. Except now he didn't have me funding his ability to absorb anything. Their new lives were smaller. Harder. Real. And I hadn't said a single word to any of them. Then, for months in, I got a text from Mom. Your father had a health scare. Stress-related. Are you happy now? Blocked. A day later, Natalie sent a long, dramatic email about how I destroyed the family and caused suffering beyond repair. I responded with one line. You gave away my room in a house I was paying for to a stranger without asking. Everything after that was earned. She didn't reply. Then, the final attempt came. An unannounced visit. I was coming home from a workout one evening when I saw Dad standing outside my apartment building. Alone. No mom. No siblings. No yelling. Just him, tired, older, and finally honest. He didn't ask me to pay again. He didn't guilt trip. He didn't cry. He just said softly, I didn't raise you right. I raised you responsible, but not respected. I let your mother set the rules. I let your siblings take advantage. And I let you carry us when you shouldn't have. I'm sorry, son. I didn't say anything at first. Then he asked the one question he never asked before. What do you want from me? And for the first time in our entire relationship, I told him the truth. What do you want from me? Dad asked again, quieter this time. It was the first moment, maybe in my entire life, that he wasn't defensive, or overwhelmed, or pretending things were fine. Just open. Waiting. Scared of the answer. I leaned against the railing outside my building, arms crossed. Honestly? I said. I don't want anything. He flinched, like the words physically hit him. I don't mean that to be cruel, I added. I mean, I don't want you to do anything for me. I don't want your money, your apologies, your guilt. I just want you to stop expecting me to fix everything. He let out a shaky breath. I didn't expect you to fix everything, he said, then caught himself. No. I did. I leaned on you because you were stable. Because you succeeded. Because it was easy. There it was. Honesty. You weren't supposed to be easy to lean on, I said. I was a kid. Then a broke college student. Then a young adult with his own life. But instead of making Natalie and Danny step up, you all leaned on the one person who already understood responsibility. He rubbed his forehead. Your mother said. I don't care what Mom said. He stopped talking immediately. Because he knew. He knew she was the source of 90% of this dynamic. Her favoritism, her excuses, her belief that I was an endless resource while the other two needed to be protected from growing up. I continued. You want to make this right? He nodded slowly. Then stop letting Natalie and Danny treat you like an ATM. Stop letting Mom manipulate you into thinking you owe her everything. Start being a father who sets boundaries instead of avoiding conflict. He swallowed hard. I don't know how, he admitted. And that, I believed. He'd spent decades peacekeeping instead of parenting. Letting things slide. Letting Mom decide. Letting Natalie and Danny float. You start by telling them the truth, I said. The same truth you told me, you didn't raise us right. You enabled two adults into thinking the world owes them comfort. He winced. You think they'll even listen? No, I said bluntly. Not at first. Maybe not for a long time. But that's not your job anymore. Your job is to stop protecting everyone from consequences. He nodded, eyes on the pavement. After a long moment, he said, I miss when we were close. I sighed. We were never close, Dad. We were functional because I made myself useful. That's not closeness. He looked up at me, really looked, and for once, didn't try to argue. What now? He asked. Now, I said, you go home. Build a life you can afford. Figure out who you are when you're not holding everyone else up. And if you ever want a real relationship with me, a healthy one, it starts with you standing on your own feet. He nodded, slow but resolute. I can try. That's all I want. He squeezed my arm, hesitant, like he wasn't sure he still had permission, then let go. I'll talk to them, he said. And I won't ask you for money again. I know. He turned to leave, took a few steps, then stopped. Son? Yeah? I'm proud of you. For finally choosing yourself. For a moment, everything went still. He'd never said that. Not once in 28 years. Then he walked away. And for the first time since I was a kid, I felt like I wasn't carrying him anymore. Dad tried. I'll give him that. For the first time in his entire life, he actually sat my mother and siblings down and told them the truth. Unfortunately, the truth hit that household like a grenade. Here's what he told me later, because I sure as hell wasn't stepping foot back in that house. He came home after meeting me, pale and shaky, and said, We need to talk. All of us. That alone almost caused a riot. Mom hates family meetings, unless she's the one calling them. But he insisted. Natalie rolled her eyes so hard she probably sprained something. Danny kept muttering, Is this about him again? Mom crossed her arms, ready for battle. Dad began. Your brother has been paying part of the mortgage for the last 4 years. Silence. Immediate, complete silence. Then, Mom, that's not true. Natalie, why would he do that? Danny, no chance. He's lying. Dad held up his phone, showing the same transactions I showed him. Mom's mouth fell open. Natalie's smugness evaporated. Danny looked like someone told him the earth was flat. Then the reaction came, and it was ugly. Mom spun on Dad. You hid this from me? For 4 years? You were already stressed, Dad said. I didn't want to make it worse. Worse? She snapped. You let him manipulate you into lying to me. Dad blinked, stunned. Manipulate me? He saved our home. Natalie jumped in immediately. So what? He thinks that gives him the right to act superior? To hold it over us? That's why he's being dramatic about a room. Danny chimed in, arms flailing. He's always been like this. Mr. Perfect. Mr. Responsible. Acting better than us. Dad finally snapped, something I have not seen in 20 years. This happened because none of you contribute. You live here for free. You treat the house like a hotel. Your brother has been covering the difference between what we could pay and what we owed. Natalie scoffed. That's his choice. Nobody asked him to. Dad's voice broke. I asked him. I begged him. Everything stopped. Even Mom stopped yelling. Dad covered his face with his hands. I begged him because I didn't know what else to do. I was ashamed. And instead of stepping up, all of you just coasted. But Mom wasn't done. So now he's punishing us by cutting us off? He's not punishing us, Dad said. He's letting us handle our own responsibilities. Mom spat back. He is abandoning his family. Dad's tone shifted, quieter but sharper. He is doing exactly what we should have done years ago, forcing his siblings to grow up. Natalie folded her arms. I'm not paying rent. You will, Dad said. Or you will move out. Danny laughed. That's funny. Dad didn't laugh. You have until the house sells. Mom stared at him like he'd become a stranger. You're choosing him over your own children. Dad shook his head. No. I'm choosing sanity. Natalie stormed to her room. Danny cursed and went outside to kick something. Mom sat down at the kitchen table, rigid with fury, whispering over and over. He'll come to his senses. He'll feel guilty. He always does. But Dad told me later. For the first time ever. I didn't. The house went up for sale the following week. You'd think the panic would motivate my family to finally cooperate, maybe clean the place, declutter, get things ready for showings. Nope. Natalie refused to pack a single thing. I'm not moving. I'm manifesting that this will all work out. Manifesting. As if Zillow accepts vibes as a down payment. Danny immediately tried to negotiate. So, if I help with chores, does that mean I can keep living here after it sells? Dad didn't even look up from the listing paperwork. No. Then Danny tried a different angle. Fine. Then you need to pay me to move. Movers aren't cheap. Dad laughed. Not kindly. Mom swung between rage and melodrama. 1 minute. This is child abandonment. Next minute. We should sue him. Next minute. This is all your fault, Frank. Dad's name. Meanwhile, I stayed out of it, until the realtor called me. Hi, this is Karen, your parents' agent. I froze. Why are you calling me? She hesitated. Well, your parents told me you're the one who understands the mortgage, the financials, and the modification terms. They said you'd provide the original paperwork. Of course they did. Of course they pushed the entire burden onto me. I told her politely but firmly. I'm not involved in the sale. Please communicate only with my father. She paused. I understand. But they also said you're the one who's been paying. No, I cut in. Not anymore. And I hung up. 2 hours later, the explosion arrived. My phone blew up with texts. Mom, how dare you embarrass us like that? Natalie, Karen said you refused to help? What is wrong with you? Danny. Bro. Just give her the papers. Why are you being such a diva? Then my favorite one. Mom again. You owe us after everything we've done for you. That one made me laugh out loud. At my desk. In front of coworkers. Dad texted me separately. Ignore them. I told Karen to reach out. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. That was new. That was growth. The listing went live on a Thursday. By Sunday, they had 8 offers. Good market. Good neighborhood. Horrible family, but the buyers didn't need to know that. After fees and payoff, they were set to walk away with around $180,000. A perfectly respectable cushion. But my family treated it like tragedy. Mom cried to every relative who would listen. Natalie acted like someone had burned down her childhood castle. Danny tried to figure out how he could get his fair share, despite never contributing a dime. Dad, meanwhile, quietly found a 2-bedroom apartment within their new budget. And that's when the final meltdown happened. Moving day. Mom stood in the empty living room, arms folded, glaring at Dad like he'd personally betrayed the United States government. This didn't have to happen, she hissed. He would have kept paying if you hadn't interfered. Dad didn't raise his voice. For the first time in his life, he didn't. No, he said. He stopped paying because we abused his generosity. Natalie scoffed. Oh, please. He's always been dramatic. Dad looked her dead in the eyes. He funded this house for 4 years. What exactly have you funded? Natalie opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Danny muttered something about needing to run an errand, and vanished for 6 hours. Mom tried one last guilt trip on Dad. He'll come crawling back. You'll see. He needs us. Dad shook his head. No. He doesn't. We just never realized it. They moved out that afternoon. Messy, resentful, furious, but out. And for the first time since I was a kid, Dad wasn't moving because Mom told him to. He was moving because he chose something better. The first month after the move was eerily quiet. No screaming voicemails. No guilt-trip group texts. No dramatic ambushes in my apartment lobby. Just silence. Which, coming from my family, was more alarming than noise. Dad settled into his new 2-bedroom apartment surprisingly well. Smaller, quieter, cheaper, and, as he described it, peaceful in a way I forgot was possible. He sent me a photo of his new recliner by the window. Just a simple text. It's not much, but it's mine. Mom, however, was not thriving. My aunt called me one night. She never calls. Your mother is telling everyone you financially abandoned the family, she said. And that you forced them into a dump. I laughed. Let me guess, she didn't mention the fraud? The freeloading? The stranger sleeping in my bed? My aunt hesitated. She left out some details. Of course she did. Then she lowered her voice. Between you and me, Frank looks happier than I've seen him in years. That surprised me. Dad? Happier? The man who used to carry stress like a second skin? Apparently losing the house was the best thing that happened to him. Meanwhile, Natalie lasted exactly 18 days living with her boyfriend before their relationship imploded in spectacular fashion. Something about her refusing to pay half of the rent and him being controlling, for expecting her to contribute anything. She ended up renting a tiny studio she hated and immediately texted me. You should help with my deposit, since you caused all this. I didn't reply. Danny got a job. A real one. Full-time. Benefits. Mostly because he ran out of couches to sleep on. Dad told me he'd never seen Danny so motivated. If I'd known losing the house would get him on his feet, Dad said, I might have sold it years ago. Mom, however, went full martyr mode. She joined Facebook groups about adult children who abandon their parents. Posted vague inspirational memes about betrayal. uploaded a dramatic selfie captioned, "Starting over, stronger than ever." Every relative knew exactly who she was subtweeting. But the real shift happened 2 months later. Dad invited me to his apartment for dinner. He cooked, nothing fancy, just pasta, and we talked like two adults instead of parent and child. Calm. Comfortable. Equal. At one point he put his fork down and said, "I've been going to counseling." I didn't hide my shock. He smiled, embarrassed. After everything blew up, I realized I spent my whole life avoiding conflict. And in doing that, I created worse conflicts. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. He continued, "I want a real relationship with you. Not one where I take and you give. One where I show up." It was the most genuinely vulnerable thing he'd ever said. Before I could respond, he added, "And I've stopped letting your mother dictate my decisions." That one hit hard. "In the best way," I finally said. "I'm proud of you." He blinked fast, the way he does when he's trying not to get emotional. We ate in silence after that. Good silence. When I was putting my shoes on to leave, he said, "Son? Yeah? I know you think you lost a family. But you didn't. You lost the part that was dragging you down. What's left, we can build." I nodded. He was right. For the first time in my life, what was left felt like something worth building. The real test came the day Mom tried to reunify the family. I should have seen it coming. She'd been quiet too long, posting those cryptic Facebook memes about forgiveness and letting go of grudges, which in Mom language means, "I'm gearing up to manipulate someone." Dad texted me ahead of time, "Your mother wants to have a family dinner. I'm only going because she won't stop hounding me. You don't have to go." I wasn't going. Not a chance. But I did go to Dad's apartment that evening to wait for him afterward, just to make sure he didn't get steamrolled. He walked in around 8:45 p.m. He shut the door slowly, hung up his jacket, sat down on the couch next to me, and started laughing. Not a small chuckle. A full-on, shoulders-shaking, breathless laugh. I stared at him. "What happened?" "Oh, son," he said, wiping his eyes. "Your mother planned an ambush and it blew up in her face. Turns out the family dinner was her attempt at staging a dramatic intervention. As soon as Dad walked in, Mom launched into a speech. According to Dad, it went something like, 'We need unity. We need healing. We need to come together and agree that what he did to us,' she pointed at Dad, 'and what you did to us,' she meant me, 'was cruel, unnecessary, and destructive.'" Dad said he stood there for a moment, letting her finish her theatrical monologue. Meanwhile, Natalie was slumped in a chair, arms folded, dramatic sighs every 2 minutes. Danny was scrolling on his phone, occasionally chiming in with, "Yeah, facts," without looking up. Mom ended her speech with, "We have to confront him. He needs to admit he ruined this family." Dad paused. Then asked, "Who is him exactly?" And Mom said, "Your son." Dad told me he almost laughed right there. He took a seat and said calmly, "No. He didn't ruin anything. He simply stopped funding dysfunction." Mom tried again. "You're brainwashed. He poisoned you against us." "Dad." "No. You took advantage of him. For years. And you're still doing it." Natalie jumped in, outraged. "He didn't have to stop paying. He just bailed because he's petty." Dad looked at her. "Natalie, you gave away his room without asking him." Natalie waved her hand. "He doesn't even live here." "Because he has a job," Dad said. "Unlike you?" Danny snorted. Mom glared at Danny. Danny went back to his phone. Mom then tried the nuclear option. "If he wants this family back, he needs to fix what he broke." Dad said something then that stunned me when he repeated it. "I'm done fixing what you break." Mom froze. Natalie froze. Danny didn't look up, but he stopped scrolling for a second. Dad continued. I spent decades cleaning up after everyone. I let it become normal. I let him become the only adult in this family. I failed him. And I'm not continuing that pattern. Mom sputtered. So you're choosing him over us? Dad shook his head. I'm choosing accountability. If you want a relationship with him, with me, it starts with accepting responsibility. Natalie rolled her eyes. Dad, stop. None of this is that deep. Dad looked at her the way a man looks at a math problem he's finally solved. Natalie, you're 25. You've never paid rent. You've never contributed to anything. You gave away a room that wasn't yours in a house you didn't pay for. You are deep in this. Danny muttered, Damn. Mom turned on him next. So you're just rewriting history? Pretending he wasn't cruel? Pretending we weren't victims? Dad stood up and put on his jacket. You're not victims, he said. You're angry the gravy train ended. Then he walked out. He didn't look back. Now he was sitting next to me on the couch, still smiling like a man who just dropped a boulder he'd been carrying for decades. What did they do after you left? I asked. Oh, he said. Natalie cried. Danny asked if he could borrow $200. Your mother said she'd pray for my soul. I burst out laughing. Dad leaned back against the couch. You know, he said softly. Standing up to them felt good. Really good. I should have done it years ago. I didn't say it, but the truth hit me. Maybe we were finally becoming a real family, just smaller, healthier, and without the parasites. The next shift came quietly. No screaming voicemails. No threats. No guilt-soaked monologues. Just an email. From Mom. The subject line. We need to talk like adults. I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won. The email was surprisingly short. I've reflected a lot. I want this family whole again. We need to move past the ugliness. Please meet with me. Just you and me. No yelling. No blame. Just a conversation. No blame. From her. I stared at the screen for a solid minute. Dad, when I forwarded it to him, texted back immediately. Don't go. She wants control, not closure. But I didn't respond right away. A small part of me, the part that spent years trying to earn approval I never got, whispered. Maybe she means it. Maybe she's changed. Maybe losing the house, losing control, losing her audience finally broke through. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet little diner halfway between our cities, neutral territory. I got there first. Sat in a booth. Ordered water. Prepared myself emotionally. When Mom walked in, she had that sad but composed posture she uses during funerals and dentist appointments, chin lifted, eyes gentle, hands folded like a saint. She slid into the booth across from me. Thank you for coming, she said softly. I nodded but didn't smile. She started with the greatest hits. I've thought a lot about what happened. I want to heal this family. I miss you. We all make mistakes. And for about 60 seconds she sounded almost genuine. Then came the pivot. The truth is, she said, placing her hand dramatically on her chest, I've realized I should have been more strict with your siblings. But you overreacted. There it was. The real Mom. I leaned back. How did I overreact? She sighed loudly, a performance sigh. You cut us off financially. I wasn't responsible for you financially. You let us lose the house. You gave away my room without asking. She waved that off. Sweetheart, it was just a misunderstanding. You punished all of us for something Natalie did. My jaw tightened. No. You approved what Natalie did. You allowed it. It wasn't approval, she insisted. I assumed you wouldn't mind. You have your own place. That wasn't your decision. Her expression hardened. So this is all about territory? An ego thing? I laughed once. Short. Sharp. You're describing yourself, Mom. She blinked, thrown off. Before she could regain her footing, I continued. You didn't ask me. You didn't respect me. You didn't even think of me. And now you want me to pretend none of it mattered. Her voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. I want you to stop being dramatic and come back to your family. There it was. Not healing. Not closure. Control. She leaned forward. You owe us that. After everything we did for you growing up. That line, after everything we did for you, was the one that finally killed any lingering guilt. I met her eyes. You did the bare minimum of parenting. And only for one of your children. She stiffened. I have always loved you. No, I said calmly. You loved having me useful. And you hated when I stopped. Silence. Her face shifted, a flicker of something ugly passing through. And then? She broke. Not emotionally. Strategically. You're choosing to destroy this family. She hissed. Your father is enabling you. And you're both going to regret this someday. I stood up. No, Mom, I said quietly. We're finally done being controlled. She opened her mouth to unleash something venomous, but I was already walking away. I paid my check, left the diner, got in my car, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free.